Hello everyone, this is Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo here with another episode of Star Citizens Addicts Anonymous. This is episode 13, interview with Sandi Gardiner. I have an exciting show for you because she brought on a special guest that I got to talk to for a little bit. But before that, we have some news items to get through and some hair to get out of my face. Sorry about that. First up, we are going to talk a little bit about the forum updates that have been announced last week in the forum and on Wingman's Hangar. Essentially, before they had Ask a Developer, and you had to know which developer did what to be able to ask your question, and very frequently we're told, that's not my area, maybe you should go and ask this person. So as time goes on, things are getting better and better and more organized at CIG, and this is one of those situations. So just to give you an example, up here, I'm just going to go over the first one. This is the hangar. Inside the hangar, we have art, design, production, and programming. So you would actually, if you had a specific question to ask, you'd go into one of those, you'd leave it there, and then the team leads would be responsible for answering the questions. So now you don't have to get that frequent response that's a great question. I don't know, maybe you should ask such and such. Very great update, and I think this is going to make our questions get answered a lot faster. And also, the input, the valuable input that we have to this game is going to find itself in the hands of the right group much quicker. We have the press roundup. Here's a video running back here. In the press roundup, MMORPG took a tour of the office. They beat me to it. I'm going out there on the 14th of March, but this is pretty decent. Take a look at it. And also in the press roundup, they have some articles in there from some other magazines. Take a look at it. I think one of them's Eurogamer and the other one, well, you can go out to the com link and take a look at those. I'm very excited about a new way that they're teaching us, or I should say, letting us know new systems that are being discovered as they're being unlocked by the stretch goals. The $36 million stretch goal, I think that was the one that unlocked the Tamsa system, and that's the one with the black hole. Well, they had an article from the Terra Gazette that explained the system, and in there they were not so sure if the UEE, well, you got to go out there and read it. I don't want to give away things. I know a lot of you wait for my show, but my expectation of this is that the lore items just keep getting better and better, and the way that they're including us in this is becoming more and more immersive. And that brings us to Drake Interplanetary. Again, this is something I was able to read inside of Jump Point. If you want to read these things when they come out, you need to be a subscriber. It is only going to be $10 or $20 a month. It doesn't give you a lot back except for your name in the game on a wall and, of course, Jump Point. Jump Point is amazing. And, you know, I look at my desk over there and there's that really, really, really big mouse pad. As a subscriber, we were able to get the Aegis ones. So there are some benefits to it, but those Jump Points are the biggest one. I look forward to the last Friday of every month so I could take a look at them. So let's get to the Drake system. Well, not Drake system, but the Drake review. No, I'm going to make you go read it because it was pretty good. But, you know, the profile itself talks about how Drake is, you know, they kind of know that they're the ship of the pirates. They're really inexpensive. Pirates aren't able to get insurance, so they need something that's really cheap to replace. But at the very end of it, when they talk about the future, they're talking about streamlining and making their ships the Caterpillar, the Cutlass, and the Buccaneer. Anyone know what a Buccaneer is? But they're talking about making them more appealing to the average person. So are they moving away from the pirates, or are they just trying to expand, which is what I hope they're doing? Because, you know, I really want to do search and rescue, and I know the Gladiator can do it, and I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I mean, we have artist concept drawings, but, you know, we've seen the Cutlass change, and we've seen the Freelancer change drastically throughout concept drawings. Right now, I like the Cutlass, and I'd love to put a big, giant red cross on it and go out there and be the nanny that picks up the people in my, the enablers. I had to give a plug for that. In my organization and go and rescue them should they go down. Next thing we met, what we had on the comlink was the Meet Patrick Thomas. And of course, Patrick Thomas is the man responsible for the Cutlass. I love that ship. Not as much as the Freelancer, but it's got attitude. That's what I like about it. So Patrick Thomas was featured in the Comlink and then on Wingman's Hangar 52 in an interview with I'm sorry, I want to remember his name, but I can't. I think it's it's Eric Peterson. Might have been a lot easier for me to remember if he would just contact me so I could talk to him on the show. Anyway, so Wingman's Hangar had that, and I'm just moving from one to the other real quickly so we can get to Sandy's interview. So Patrick Thomas was on there, and in the interview, he actually talked about how they're going to be, I guess, changing the interior of the Cutlass to make it look more beat up and worn and dirty and more of a pirate vessel, not this crisp cleanness that they have right now. Sorry if I stumble over my words. It's the braces every time. So we're going to take one step back and we're going to talk about Lore Builder before we complete the Wingman's Hangar 52. I have requested that David Haddock come on the show and I've gotten confirmation, so I'm going to be able to interview him before the end of this month, we hope. And if not, it will be soon after that. But I have read every one of his lore items and I look forward to reading stories from him and other people in the Jump Point. And I like being involved. I can't say that I think I'm good enough to put my stuff out there, but I love to read it. And we saw Seda Ball and some other things like pirates and syndicates move forward with help from the people that read this, from members of the forums. Right now what they're asking for is for the members of the forums to go out there and comment in this week's Lore Builder to add a celebrity of some sort, and it's one paragraph. You got to keep it to one paragraph, and they're going to get them into the lore of the universe. It might not make it into the game, but it might make it into some of the stories and other pieces of the Star Citizen universe. Along with that, they got a little bit more in depth with talking about the Squadron numbering system. This week I guess the way that I could explain it to you is they talked about Chain of Command and the different monikers for them, like High Command, the Grand Imperium, and, what the fleets are. And then they got into the actual designations of the ships. So it's really good to read. It's probably something that you want to look at real quick because you're going to hear probably over the comms at some point that there's a CV or CVE out there, and, you wouldn't know that those were carriers and escort carriers. So it's good to know these things. So then we get back into Wingman's Hangar. And in Wingman's Hangar, we had kind of an update on what's going on there, right? So they've moved into their office. They haven't gotten everything situated yet. We had that really nice tour that Eric and Mike took us on the prior week. But in this one, we're learning a little bit more that things are progressing. And then in my conversation with Chris, oh, sorry, shouldn't have said that. All right, well, we'll talk about that later. Anyhow, moving on, we also had, I guess Ben was still there to tape the show on Thursday. I think that's when they do it. But Ben is in the process of moving from Austin to LA, so everybody wish him luck in his move. And I think this was the last time that he's actually going to be on the show in the same office. So that was one thing that he was able to do there. He's still going to be on the show each week and be able to provide help with forum feedback and also with the MVP. And if you want to know more about this, it's playing behind me right now. Just go out there and watch the show. It's well worth it every week. And subscriber dollars, the dollars I pay each month, and many of you out there are going to pay for this. And it's a great wealth of information. And even though people complain that it's getting shorter and shorter, I think that, in the long run, it's going to be longer and longer as the show in LA starts to be played, unless 10 from the chairman is what that is. All right, so I just said that. 10 from the chairman. We had another episode of 10 from the chairman this week and another 3 questions. 10 questions, that was it. And essentially what I pulled out of that, there were a lot of really good questions. And I wanted you to watch the video because Chris and the LA office puts a lot of effort into this. And yes, the questions are coming from those of us that are subscribers. But in most cases, these questions are questions that all of us have. And I just pulled a couple of them out of this week so we can so I can just give you like the biggest highlights. The first thing was they were talking about ships at some point, like what ships are next. And Chris went into a long, not long, a very detailed explanation of ships that are currently in their different points of development. And he said that right now it's a race between the Caterpillar, the Idris, and then the variants of the Constellation and Freelancer. So that's a lot coming out. So we have those ships coming out. And once all those are out, I guess it's going to start moving into things like the M50 and the Gladiator, Retaliator, and then into the ships that they just announced. It takes a long time for these ships to get produced, from works in progress to from concept drawings to works in progress to in-model or in-game models to being released to us, and then us having to go and beat them up and see how they work and how they look and give our feedback to make them better. So those are one of the things that they're working on right now. And another question had to do with server wipes, which I found was pretty... at first I was like, really? And then I said, you know what, that is a good question. And essentially, all the work that we're putting in, if we start doing things in-game, obviously the alpha version of the game is going to be wiped because they're going to have to go back and forth to make it to the point where it's almost releasable, and then thus the beta. So alpha is going to be wiped, but later on in the beta, as we near live, that type of stuff, they still haven't made a determination, but it will probably stay in the game for those of us that have backed before the actual launch. Exploration was requested, was one of the requests. Tell us about exploration. And it's a lot more detailed than I thought. It's not just going out there plotting a jump point and getting through it. It's plotting everything in system that's not in the trade lanes. So nebulas and the gases in the nebulas, the minerals in the known asteroid fields, and plotting asteroid fields that aren't known. And he explained the whole jump point navigation, and the way he explained it was rather unique and rather interesting. And he said that it was going to be like catching that mega wave off of northern Hawaii, and how you'd have to ride it, and then if you were successful, you'd be able to plot it, and then you could either keep that information for yourself, sell it to the highest bidder, or sell it to the UEE. So I find that to be very interesting. In fact, he said it's going to take skill. So I can't wait to actually start in-game, because exploration is one of the things I really want to take part in. He was also asked, what about these really big ships that we could buy, like the Idris Corvette, and I think the Destroyer and Battlecruiser, which are going to be added to the game, but I am not sure that they're going to be player-owned. I guess they could be, but I'm not sure. I should have asked him that question. But the larger ships are going to have to dock at a spaceport, at a space station, and then the player will have to take a shuttle down to the planet side. And that, I kind of understood that, but I thought maybe the Idris was, maybe there was a special hangar or a landing zone for that. We all saw that large landing strip in Phantom Menace when they took that, well, let's not even mention Phantom Menace again. I'm sorry. I think that is about it, except for a question that was kind of answered but still vague because the things aren't done yet. And that question had to do with organization-owned structures and how they affect planet side. And there was a lot to the question, but there's so many different things going on there that I think that the answer to the question was, yes, player organizations are going to be able to run space stations and buy businesses and other things like that, and they will have an effect on colonies, especially of the planets that they discover. But not all of that is going to make it into the start of the system, and I understand that, start of the game. I understand that, but I think that there's way too much in that question to answer as one question, and to answer in the time that Chris had to answer one question on 10 for the chairman. So that's something that I guess that we could revisit with Rob and Eric at some point, or maybe somebody asks Chris again in the future. So we're going to move on from there, and we're going to get to the last item that I have for you, and that's going to be the concept art of the Gedan system. And again, a beautiful system over here. This one is it's under the protection of the Bono Protectorate. It's a volcanic world. It has some really wacky weather due to the volcanoes. Its atmosphere is more suitable for the Banu, and humans there would definitely have to wear a light pressure suit. But what's happened is that large arcologies were created and then driven deep into the crust of the world. So you have these arcologies that are called spires, and they say that, landing at these spires because of the weather and because of, they don't really get too detailed, causes a lot of starship accidents. Now, we're not landing ourselves in this game, so I'm wondering how they're going to, follow through with that statement. If you hit the land button on there and you go to the freelancer type cutscene, does that mean 1 in 50, 1 in 75 times my ship just crashes? I don't know. That's a good question though, right? I guess the other things I want to talk to about there are just the resources of this particular planet. There are two things that it's really known for, and one thing that we have to question. And the two things are known for are black glass and gray oil. So black glass is used in building electronics, and gray oil is used as an engine lubricant for starship engines. But there's something else mentioned, and that's that in the poles, the water freezes with the poisons that are created from the volcanic world, and that's illegal. But is it illegal for the planet to freeze it, or is it illegal for you to go and get it? But I'm not trying to pick these things apart. It's kind of like that probably means that somebody with a smuggling ship is going to go there, and there's going to be some purpose for that poison somewhere else. I guess, otherwise they wouldn't put that in the lore. I know David's pretty specific about the things he writes. So I want to get to the next part of the video, but I want to get through these next two things, and I'm just going to put this over here. When this video is live, there's going to be a link up here. And a few weeks ago, and I've been waiting for this show, so there would be a lot more people watching it, there was a thread that was in general chat, and essentially it was like called Save My Wife. There's one of our citizens has a wife who has liver disease, and he's trying to get the money that he needs for her to get the treatments that she needs. And, we saw our group come together for Eric Peterson's son in Wingman's Hangar, and I promised in a message to this person that I would put the link up here. All right? So having a mom that died of cancer and knowing how much it cost my dad and my family to take care of her, I'm just going to say it's up there. And you guys, you know what to do. If you feel like helping, click on the link. And if not, I'm not telling you to do so. I'm just putting it out there as a service to this person who, when I hear these things, my heart breaks. All right? Well, I'm not keeping you any longer. Sandi Gardiner is next, and then we have that special guest, which I guess I spilled the beans on. You guys have a wonderful week. Keep watching till the end of this video, and don't skip ahead. Sandi's important. And I will see you in the verse. Bye. Tonight we have a very special guest for our show. I'll be interviewing Sandi Gardiner. Sandi, welcome to my show.
Hi, welcome, and thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's always great to have one of you guys on, and I am very appreciative that you were, or I should say grateful, that you were able to find the time in your days to do this for me.
Sure.
So
anytime.
I tend to start off the interviews with pretty much the same questions for everybody. So the first thing I ask everybody is, what was the first computer that you or your family owned that you gamed on?
I'm not sure I gamed on it, but we did have a Commodore 64. Does that count? Yeah.
It does,
so.
but that was before your time.
It was, but we weren't a particularly wealthy family, so a computer stuck around for quite a while in our house.
All right. Was there ever a game that had you addicted?
Probably Doom was the one that had me addicted. Mainly because I didn't want to write my thesis, so I spent many hours playing that, and yeah, got pretty addicted to playing it.
Okay. Now, I see that you had a career in acting in the motion picture industry. What was your most memorable moment from doing that?
I think it was probably on the other side of the camera. I had an opportunity to work with a movie director called Peter Bogdanovich, who's an old school movie director from the 70s, most famous for The Last Picture Show. And he was just great to work for, and I used to love car rides with him because he would talk a lot about movies in the 50s and being part of that and the 70s. So I would have liked
How
to
long
be
ago
around
was
that
that?
time. What's that? That was 2002. I worked for him.
Okay. So was that right around the time that you met Chris then?
It was. I came to Los Angeles for the second time in 2003, and I interned at his film company when I was doing my master's in business.
And what positions did you hold with him when he was producing the movies he did?
I wrote coverage on scripts that came in, and did a lot of basic kind of office stuff there. I actually didn't go, well, I did go on set, but it wasn't credited. I was on set for his film Lucky Number 11, not Outlander, but Lord of War in South Africa, and Acidust in South Africa as well.
Okay. So were you part of the initial Star Citizen pitch, or I think they called it something else back then, didn't they?
Yes, last July. Feels like, no, not last July. It would be the last July. So it was called Space Traders, was the way that Chris pitched it to me over a year and a half ago. So yeah.
What was your initial thought?
I thought it was really cool. I really did think it was really cool, which is pretty much why I signed up for it. I don't have experience in the video game industry, so to speak, and actually the role that I'm doing. So, but what Chris pitched to me really spoke to me, so, and there you have it.
So how much of the crowdfunding campaign or the way that you're funding Star Citizen and Squadron 42 was thought of in the very beginning?
It was pretty much all thought of in the very beginning. I think at that time it was probably really only Tim Schafer who had done something of note. Yeah, I think so. It was quite a while ago. He was kind of the one that pioneered something similar to what we were thinking of doing. And then right before we launched, Project Eternity launched their first campaign, which did really well. So yeah, we kind of had crowdfunding.
Okay, the Kickstarter was very successful. Could you remember the moment that, like, the team there realized that it was a success?
Probably, I would say in the last 10 days of the campaign was when we felt like we'd really done a good job. We thought we'd done a good job in the beginning, and the website crashed and there was a few problems, and we just kept on going and kept campaigning. We had quite a few things that came in right at the end. So that was really rewarding that people responded to it favorably.
So what are the responsibilities that you have day to day with Cloud Imperium games?
I do an umbrella of things, and it's probably not traditional marketing in the sense, although I guess it is because it is branding and positioning our brand in the marketplace. On a day-to-day basis, I deal a lot with our hardware partners, which is kind of in progress behind the scenes, and that should take effect come towards the end of this year. I oversee the events that we are doing, so our Citizencon Tour that's happening this year, with the first event being at PAX East in Boston. So we just sealed a venue for that. And I oversee our linear stuff at the moment. So we have the Next Great Starship, which is starting at the end of January. We have some really awesome entries. And it's quite interesting, the judges that we have with the different opinions that they have, which is cool. Judges should have different opinions. So I oversee that. The merchandising, mostly from the design aspect. What else? I did start doing customer service stuff, but that's mainly now Chelsea and another rep, Lawrence, and also Alexis, who do that. And then I just hired somebody today, so you'll probably be hearing from them soon. I also, professional mod team, we interviewed a pro mod team this morning, so that is going to be changing on our website. What else? That sounds like a lot. Can't think of what else I did today.
Sounds like you do a lot.
So yeah, but we're looking for people in all those areas, but I guess I've kind of pioneered the division and then looking for people to take it over.
Well, you just probably answered one of the questions somebody wanted me to ask, which was, what are you doing when you're answering emails at 2 a.m.?
That's a good question. I don't know. I tend to work a lot, so that's probably my addiction, a bit of a workaholic. But it's kind of not really work, it's fun. So, but yeah, I do answer emails at all odd hours.
That came from somebody that was that had lit their concierge button, as they called it. So.
Yeah, I used to answer concierge, certainly during the Kickstarter campaign when there were fewer people in concierge. I was answering that around the clock. I mean, when you're in the middle of a campaign, you tend to not sleep. So.
Yeah. Next question for that then. I don't know if this one's for you. It's actually it has to do with crowdfunding. It's, crowdfunding is unique. However, growing more popular with the way that games are being funded today. I think you guys really pioneered this. I know other people did, but people are starting to see how much money Star Citizen made. What challenges did you have to overcome early on in the campaign, in this campaign?
I think, I mean, you just never know. We did take a risk, right? So we did a lot of research, and we did our best to have a good PR campaign, and Chris obviously put his best prototype forward, and he had a team supporting him. There's a lot of, when you're hiring new people, it's a little foreign. Like I've done quite a few job interviews, and it's not as easy to find somebody to replace a lot of the roles that I do. I mean, certainly in the initial part of the campaign, we weren't really hiring a lot of people because we didn't know how well we were going to do, but still explaining to people what we're trying to do is challenging because it's a new form of, they're like, okay, so people pledge money and then you talk to them every day, or like they're just, it's a new form of communication and back and forth. The community obviously has a lot of input, and Chris is, looks for their input, and so do I as well. And it's challenging in as much that it's kind of scary and exciting. So it is kind of challenging because it's, you know, what if they don't like what you have or what you say, or you have to deal with it.
Yeah. Right now, have any big publishers contacted CIG trying to bring you under their wing at all?
You mean like a kind of an Activision thing, or that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
like companies that are looking at you guys and the potential that you have.
Obviously we had private investors who were willing to jump on board once we had shown that there was interest. And then when we showed that there was a lot of interest, those private investors were not publishers.
Okay.
But no, not really.
I think that comes from people that fear something big pulling you guys off track, but I know that won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris is a pretty strong personality and strong in his opinions, and quite, I think the energy comes off that he's quite independent, so the publishers probably, I don't know. I mean, it's not like he doesn't know them and they don't know him, so, but.
I think what I find when I tell people about Star Citizen is that more people know Chris than I ever thought. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's where I go to buy coffee for the office. They're like, oh my God, I'm so excited, like for Star Citizen, and where's Chris today? It's like, okay.
Yeah. I went to get pizza the other day, and the guy behind the counter looked at me and said, "You're the girl that does that Chris Roberts video." And I'm like, "Oh, for Star Citizen, yeah." So it was, you know, I never expected that. I mean, I don't have a big followership, but they knew Chris right off the bat and went through this whole dissertation about their life and playing Wing Commander and Freelancer and Privateer. So he's made a big impact on a lot of people, and, you know, in multiple age groups.
Yeah, I mean, I had a woman email me the other day. She's getting married in Germany, and she wanted to buy a wedding present for her husband after they exchanged their vows, and so we had a personal letter written for her to give to her husband, which is signed and written by Chris, and so she was like beside herself, and we FedExed that to Germany, and
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, hey, why not? So we got quite a few of those different requests. We also had an 80-year-old man send us a letter saying, and I mean, he's just been a big Wing Commander fan, played all of Chris's games. He's pledged for Star Citizen, and he was sending us his computer specs and asking for advice on how he should upgrade his computer so Star Citizen runs well on it, which was kind of cute. So I sent him a coffee mug and a letter from Chris, and he was pretty
so
stoked.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You should have pointed him to the hardware forum, because there are some pretty intense conversations going on in there.
Yeah, I know, I bet. I just figured, you know, that he'd written to us and sent us something, so.
Which leads me to a question. Will you ever do what Sandi's building her computer with segment on your show?
Oh, yeah. I have to put the specs up. Chris has got 2 Titans in his computer, so.
Well,
but mine
you're
runs,
starting your show
mine
pretty
runs faster.
soon, right?
It's just that it gives off, yes. It's just that my computer gives off a lot of heat. So, yeah. I don't think it's very practical.
All right. Well, the next question is just about the continuation of the campaign. It's like, I know that marketing could be a challenge in this arena, but you guys seem to have it locked down. What's going to change when in-game currency becomes the way people buy ships, and you move away from the pledges on ships? Will you have something else in place?
You know, I think that right now, because we don't have a game out, obviously, that there's a whole lot of people who haven't bought ships, just even the basic ship. And when I say that, I mean we have 300,000 plus people, but I'm thinking that at the end of the day, it could be, 1, 2, 3 million people. So.
Oh, easily. Now, when you count that just leads into a different question. I don't want to cut you off because you could elaborate after this. The 300,000 number, is that unique individual people, or can some people, or is that packages?
No, that is unique backers, and then I'm not exactly sure how that works if, say, some people have more than one account.
Okay.
I did ask that. I think, though, that the computer is actually smart enough to know that you're the same IP, so it doesn't take up another alpha slot, but I would have to confirm that to know.
That's good, because I bought my son's a package on a different account, so that makes sense. That's good. All right. So I think we already touched this on this one. Originally when you started Concierge, $1,000 seemed to be a distant, goal for a lot of people. But at this point, there's thousands of people that have hit that Concierge button. Have you had any challenges trying to support that community at all as it grows larger?
Yes, it is quite challenging, the Concierge department. Chelsea obviously deals with it a lot more than I do now. It's and rightly so, that people have pledged a lot. $1,000 is a lot of money. So here's one thing that's coming out this month is organizations. So we do want to do groups for, say, black, titanium, platinum, all the different concierge levels, split them up a little bit more, and then give them information through organizations that kind of gives them a little bit more and divide it. Because it's challenging now that there's more people, the 10,000 and the 1,000, we should kind of be
different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So. I know, because in my, I guess I have an organization now. We've got multiple space marshals, wing commanders, and somebody that's, I guess, talking to Chelsea about getting the completionist now. So
right.
And those are well above the $1,000 mark.
Right.
The last I looked.
Right, and we want to do. People ask us, say, for example, about the Million Mile High Club, and we do have information about that, but it would be good that we get something formal from Chris, and then we can post it in that organization, and then people know what that's about, and just things like that. So that's
amazing.
Yeah.
So you also, you're quite involved with picking and designing the things, the hard merchandise that we get to purchase. How is that process? Like, how long does it take you from idea to actually being able to ship something?
For example, we've just gone into production on the 10-inch Constellation model, and what has to happen is you have to make a mold. We actually got turned down by pretty much every company to make these Constellation, the model, because it's so complicated. So we got turned down by all the toy factories, and actually we're accepted by a company who makes things for, say, Audi, Mercedes, the little not toy, but they're models that they have that are made out of metal. So that all happened like mid last year, canvassing, quoting, going back and forth on the design. I have to get like Chris involved, the designers involved. So that, for example, is going to take maybe a year. It's crazy. Other things don't take as long. A patch, for example, I can turn that around in 2 or 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The hoodies, anything that involves fabric, t-shirts, hoodies, whatever, sweater. That takes a little while because you have to source the fabric, try the fabric, dye the fabric, pre-shrink the fabric. We did have an issue with the polo shirts, the 4XL. We're going to do another run of those for 4XL people. So all you 4XL people, please send us in your measurements so we can get a good average of what our fans need. Because sizes today, it's not necessarily true to size. When somebody says, oh, I'm a 2XL, in different countries that kind of means different things. So
I noticed that.
Those things don't turn around quite as quickly. And then also there's numbers. People say, oh, I want to get dog tags, for example, but can you sell enough numbers to make it viable?
I think at this point, whatever you put on the site, people are going to throw money at.
Right, right. Well, we're we don't want to have everything under the sun, but
no, I understand that. Which, people wanted me to ask you, and I'm sure you can't divulge this, but is there anything new coming
in terms of the merchandise
that you haven't talked about before? We know about hoodies and shirts and mugs and other things, and now you just told us about the 10-inch Constellation model, so that should answer that question.
Yeah.
Is there anything else coming?
That is coming. I do want to work on, people have asked me about the USB sticks. That's an interesting one because the price of the actual gigabyte itself really fluctuates. It's kind of like the stock market. So that's an interesting one. The star map somebody asked me about. Blueprints is something that I'm looking into.
Okay.
So there are a few things kind of on the cards, but to actually make it to being sold is another. Like I have coffee mugs sitting around, but I don't know, we're not sure how to pack them properly to ship them around the world. So.
No, they were packed very nicely.
Yeah, well, maybe I should try it. So.
You'd have to pack everybody's individually, though.
Right. Exactly.
Citizen cards ever going to be offered again?
Citizen cards did go out in the replacement run for people who did not receive them or there was mistakes on them because there was a few mistakes. What I do plan to do with citizen cards is potentially people who come to events that they would get a citizen card specific for that event. So like a medal card, if you went to PAX East or if you went to PAX Australia or whatever event that we have. So they will be, I'm just not sure about the personalizing bit. So.
Okay. And the last thing is, and this is, what do you see as the biggest thing in the future for this year for Star Citizen?
This year is going to be quite a big year with all the modules coming out. So I think, I think it's probably going to be towards the end of the year when the different modules have stabilized and people really start to get into the gameplay. And all the ships, obviously, you can fly all of those. So towards the end of this year, we could really mushroom to a whole other level. So we're just trying to get prepared for that.
Okay. Well, I think I've taken enough of your time for today, and I really appreciate you being on. Is there anything you want to say to the viewers?
Thank you very much for supporting. It's going to be a cool year. Hang in there if it's... patience is a good virtue, and it's not my strong point either. So, but it's going to be pretty awesome this year. So, I think once it starts happening, it's going to be like a freight train. So, I will see if I can get. Hey, Chris.
All right. Hey, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thanks for saying hello. I appreciate it. And
You're
also,
welcome.
thank you for that wonderfully handwritten note you sent me.
You're welcome.
Chris, the only question I could ask you is, over the next 3 months, what's the most exciting thing that you see coming besides the dogfighting module?
The dogfighting module?
Besides that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard. We're pretty focusing on the dogfighting module. We've got a bunch of other stuff happening in parallel. So we're working on the first-person combat boarding stuff, which we haven't shown anyone yet. But I'm not sure if we'll be showing it in 3 months' time. But there's some pretty cool stuff going on there. We're working on the Squadron 42 sort of single-player story, and we've got some really cool stuff going on there, and the planet-side stuff. So, I mean, all the aspects of the game are moving along on parallel, and there's some really cool stuff. It's just a matter of like how we're going to share it and what order we're going to share it in. So, obviously, right now the dogfights are a priority.
Yeah, and I do have one question. I think it's the one I should have asked. I assumed that all the modules and everything are being designed by different teams around the world. When one falls behind, does it stack all, does it push all the other ones behind a little bit too?
Not so much. I mean, we operate in parallel, so that's kind of the idea of having multiple studios work on different aspects of the game. So the one aspect of the game that, is mission critical is the back-end hub, which is one of the things that we wanted to wait for the dogfighting module. So that potentially could have the ramification that it could impact the other modules, but generally the other modules, I mean, that's why we haven't specifically announced when we're going to show the first, like an early version of the first-person combat or an early version of the planet side, is because we sort of have all these different studios working on in parallel, and then we sort of we can see which ones are going to be sort of getting closer to a stage that we'll share sooner. So it's kind of like, it's like on a computer now you have multiple processors. It's sort of distributed development is like distributed computing.
Okay. And did the Austin office getting set up so late have any effect on the, falling behind on the DFM?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's less about, less had effect on what we were doing, although we couldn't hire up as we thought we would have more people in Austin sooner, but we kind of put a freeze on hiring because we had nowhere to put them. So that did impact our engineering ability, but really it was more about like supporting, if we got something out and supporting it while you're trying to do a move. And like even right now, we didn't live stream the Wingman's Hangar today because they still have a slow connection in the new office. It's like it's 50 down but only 5 up, so we don't have the proper fiber in there. We're waiting on Time Warner, and so like if you don't have all that stuff there, then it makes it hard to sort of deal with the deployment. I mean, the size of the files that we just put up when we even push them out via the CDNs is pretty huge, so we're still not up and running there. Hopefully they'll get the internet sorted out in the next week or two in Austin, but that's the problem with that kind of stuff. Like people like Time Warner are never quick in terms of putting that sort of higher bandwidth fiber stuff in.
All right. Well, I want to thank you because I've played every single game that you were part of that was in my era. And when I was in the middle of playing Strike Commander one day, I dreamed of a day that you could walk around your ships and jump in them. And, of course, then Wing Commander 3 came out and still wasn't there. And I thank you so much for not just making your own dream come true, but for making mine and everybody else that's joining in with you.
You're more than welcome. It's the same here. I was playing it, and it'd be like really cool if you could walk around the ships and do all the stuff. So, luckily, everyone's excited by the same goal. So, and everyone's pulled together to make us do it. So, we're going to do something pretty awesome. So, thanks for your support. And anyway, yeah, I'm just having a blast doing it.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, that's it, Chris. I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you so much for taking your time to answer a couple of questions.
Oh, you're welcome.
My name is Sergeant Stockus, and I'm a shipaholic. It all started when I saw her standing there on the other side of the room, just looking at me, smiling at me. She was beautiful, confident, and very classy, but way too good for me. I didn't have a chance. Or did I? I saw her again 2 days later, and this time her look had changed from a friendly smile to one of passionate seduction. I knew I had to have her. I adored her gorgeous curves from afar. She was dressed to kill and ready for action, and I wanted, nay yearned to give it to her. I was petrified. She looked like she could handle herself in a tough neighborhood. This could be dangerous. Taking my courage in both hands and my heart in my throat, I dared to touch her running my fingers softly across her belly, mesmerized by every delicious line and the texture of her velvet skin. She wasn't so young anymore, but she had experience. I could tell she was going to teach me a lesson or two. I couldn't contain myself. "I need you," I whispered as I stroked her under the chin, and with that, she lowered her veil and revealed herself to me. I spent what felt like an eternity exploring every inch of her body, pressing her buttons, controlling her, driving her insane and pushing her to the edge. She loved it and begged for more. We were moving so fast, perhaps too fast. We had only just met. But I was blinded by love, blinded by passion, blinded by lust, blinded by the landing lights of an Idris Corvette on its final approach from Vega. It all happened so fast before I knew what was going on. I was being ejected in an emergency pod. I let out a gut-wrenching scream, "No!" But she slipped through my fingers. It was too late. I know, deep down in my shattered heart, that she just saved my life, that she sacrificed herself for me out of love, true love, and I know that I will never feel the same way again. I will never love another as I did her, my one, my only, my freelancer. I woke up in the middle of a metatube being escorted to the medical evacuation vessel, emergency lights flashing through the observation port and sirens of the catastrophic response unit blaring in the background. I didn't care. I felt like part of my soul had been torn up into pieces and fed to a Vandul. I felt empty. While one of the CRU crew stood my metatube up to be loaded into the Cutlass cargo bay, I noticed someone standing at the back of the crowd gathered at the scene. She looked concerned for me, as if she already knew me. I asked the crew member if he knew who she was. He glanced over his shoulder, and he secured the final transport restraining bolt and said, "Oh, her?" He smiled. "Her name is Aurora. My name is Sergeant Stockus, and I'm a shipaholic."